Tell you about the other side, about a place that ain't all pretty ass rainbows and motherfucking butterflies. I'm telling you, when you realize it sticks out like a torch in the night before you realize.
You do not have to be miles away from civilization to be caught in a survival situation. Natural disaster, civil disobedience, or military action could cut you off from all the usual services and food supplies. Until then, or until they can be reestablished, you would be left to manage on your own resources and your own skills. With no power supplies, central heating, hot water, lighting, air conditioning, and refrigeration would all cease. Battery radios, television would for a time give some news of the rest of the world if the situation is not global, but post, telephone, and newspapers would no longer be available. A generator is an essential backup, and shortwave radio is useful. As main water supplies cease to function, so taps would run dry and toilets would become unusable. In the countryside, there would be natural resources to draw upon. In large cities, shops would soon be emptied of food from looting and different things like that. And plants in parks and gardens would be rapidly stripped once any private stocks had been exhausted. The population would have to make forays out into the countryside to survive, or abandon the town altogether if not in a siege situation. Suburban dwellers have more vegetable plots and open spaces to provide foodstuffs. They would be less dependent on shops. Those away from major centers are more likely to have their own food stocks because they cannot shop at will. Most families have some food in the store, or in store. It should be rationed and supplemented with whatever can be found. So, and that's assuming that you have, a pantry or something, and you're, I think all of us have had, pantries that have canned food items just kind of sit there forever. It's probably a good idea. It's not probably, it is a good idea that you actually maintain a normal food storage just for scenarios that could fall under any of these categories, so that you have enough stuff to sustain your bodies in case scenario like this, if you're actually stuck in your house and can't leave. Nobody wants to leave right away. The whole idea is not to have to skedaddle right away and get out of sight, but if we have to, there's plans for that too. But if there is a way, if you're, live in the suburbs, or if you're in the country or something like that, because all of this is probably anything that happens is going to start in population centers. It only makes sense, like where I live, it's not necessarily a population center. It's not real big on the whole nationwide scene or stage, so probably have a few extra days or weeks or months before we have to deal with anything here. But that's just an assumption. There's no guarantees in that either. So the next category on the home front after that introduction is called food stores. Storing food is a good habit to get into, especially if you live in an isolated space or place, which can become completely cut off. If you have a year's food supply in store and add to it as you use it, you will not only be able to survive the worst, but will be able to live at last year's prices. And that's huge too, in case food becomes so scarce that prices go through the roof. The stock does not have to be established in one go. Build it up gradually, taking advantage of special offers in supermarkets. And this has been something that I've talked to a few of the survivalists with in the past. It's important, even just by yourselves, to allocate a weekly or even a monthly budget, maybe of $25 to $50 that you spend purely just on canned food products and non-perishable food items that you're just not going to use and don't need right now, and that would be purely for the future in case something happens. And then if you do find yourself having to use it, immediately replacing that you do use, so that you always have a stored, a pantry with some stored food. Let's see, buy an extra tin or packet and put it by. Store your foods in a cool, dry, dark place and off the ground. Moisture and heat can cause bacteria and molds. If stores are left on the floor, insects and rodents will help themselves. So make sure that all containers are insect and rodent proof. Again, that goes back to, if it's going to be non-perishable food item or something that you find in a box or in a plastic bag or something that a rodent can chew through, put it in a Rubbermaid container or a Tupperware container of some kind, and then just label it so you remember what in the world it is. If it's something like that, that can be misconstrued as some other kind of food. Just, it's smart to label and organize and categorize things like that. But get some rubber. You can go to the dollar store and get, stacks of Tupperwares for $1. So get some and take some of the stuff that you would normally hold in a bag and put it in there. Remember, rotate cans so that the contents do not settle and separate. Shake them up, whatever, because this stuff could be sitting for a while. Label each can or packet with a color-fast, waterproof pen. Noting contents and date of storage, very important to date stuff, even when it comes to canned food. Use it all in sequence, and that's where the organization comes into play. Organize all your stuff based on dates, so your oldest stuff will be in the front. You know what I mean? And then you rotate your newer stuff to the back, and then you just continue to do that rotational process so that you're not using up all your newest foods right away, and then before you know it, all the older dated stuff is completely useless, because that kind of defeats the entire purpose of having a long-term food storage. Let's see, store methodically, and if the labels fall off, you should still have a good idea of the contents. Choice of foods will depend upon individual taste, but straightforward products, corned beef and preference of beef stew and dumplings will keep better and can be used in greater variety of ways. Wheat keeps better than flour. It is less susceptible to moisture, light, and insects and temperature change. Wheat found in the pyramids was found in good condition after thousands of years. However, you must grind it to make flour, so invest in the small hand grinder. Which, investments like that are awesome, because even later on, you can use that stuff when you're, out on the land, living off the land and stuff like that. So it's, it can be useful now and in the future. Definitely keep it sealed is our next section. Screw top sweet jars are ideal for storage in plastic containers with tight-fitting lids. Can also be used. I already mentioned that. Do not overfill them so that they distort and the lid does not fit correctly. Use adhesive tape to seal the lids. Reseal after using some, but remember that once open, the contents will begin to disintegrate or deteriorate. And then here is a quick recommendation for foods and shelf life. Wheat indefinitely below about 15 degrees Celsius or 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Milk powder can last up to 2 years. Honey indefinitely. Honey is awesome. I mean, that is one of the best natural resources that we have. Egg powder about 2 years. Salt indefinitely, if absolutely dry, of course. Canned food 3 to 5 years, but it's always safe to, like I said, it's good to rotate that stuff. And if you find that you've got products that are past those, you probably want to open and double check and make sure that it's not bad, because you don't need it to be taking up space on your shelf. Oats indefinitely. Cooking oil 2 years, and replace that regularly as well. Rations. So next section, after keeping it sealed. Complete rations are available with various menus, either freeze-dried or dehydrated. They are lighter and less space-consuming than canned foods. Freeze-dried are best for both taste and texture, retain minerals which are lost in dehydration. Although both need water to for reconstitution, they can, in dire circumstances, be eaten as dry as well. And that's kind of like some of the MRE stuff. We've had conversations about MREs, and the thing about those is you can find some pretty expensive MRE packs. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do. If you're more interested in taking up less space, you feel like you're going to be on the lam and you need as much food taking up as little space and weight as possible, then MREs. If you can swing MREs financially, that's probably a good idea. If not, then canned goods, and if you're going to be carrying that crap with you when you leave the house, you better have a trailer or a truck, because it takes a whole lot of freaking canned goods to just feed a small family of 3 or 4 people. So that is if you wanted to eat like you did at home. If not, then of course there's going to be some sacrificing as far as that's concerned. And, maybe based on weight, you want to start allocating canned food rations to a point where you don't have to carry hundreds and maybe even thousands of pounds of canned food. Vitamins. Multivitamin tablets are also a good investment. The body can store up to a month's supply of most vitamins. Your health will suffer if they are not replaced. In stress situations, they are more rapidly used up. The B vitamin and mineral calcium and zinc are first to go. Vitamin tablets do not have unlimited shelf life. Check manufacturer's instructions. This is huge. That's just something that, you know, is obviously super light, you know, and that is the basics of the food, other than having, you know, you do want to have solid foods at some level and at some point because of the calories. But if you're just trying to resupply your basic necessary vitamins and minerals in your body to enable you for energy and stuff like that, then, you know, those kinds of things are good too, and it'll help you fight off colds and sickness and disease in really bad scenarios. So other foods like dry fruit, nuts are nutritious and should also be included. Raisins, sultanas, and currants are all keep well. Nuts and their shells keep so long as they are dry. Packets of dried salted nuts such as peanuts, Brazils, and walnuts are highly nutritious. Potato powder is a great filler for hungry stomachs and can be prepared in several ways to make it palatable. Brown rice has more nourishment than long grain white rice, which loses all its goodness when boiled. And then we'll go to the storage location. The cooler the storage area, the better the stores will keep. A cellar is ideal, but there may be a problem with dampness, so keep all the stores off the ground and inspect them regularly. If there is a skylight in the cellar, cover it. The store is to be kept dark. An attic is also convenient for storage. The stores are not in the way of day-to-day activities. However, it may get very warm in the summer, and access may be difficult, especially if a ladder is the only means of entry, which may be awkward when trying to rotate bulky stores. The roof is also a vulnerable position in most kinds of disaster situations. In an area where hurricanes can be expected, an attic is not a good choice, obviously. In territory liable to flooding, a cellar would be equally at risk. Under the stairs is another idea that may offer some protection, though perhaps limited space. Advantage should be taken of wherever is most conveniently available to store not only food but also medical supplies, disinfectants, cleaning materials, and water. If you divide your stores into more than one area, each with a variety of items, you should be well prepared. Now, I want to just kind of segue with what we've read here into one of the situations, possibly using some of our contributions weekly, which we have agreed in our survival society to donate financially to the group at what we can, minimum of $1 every week. And those resources are to go to some of the mandatory necessities that we will need as a group. Now, here in this survival society, I want to focus a lot on a group, keeping things group oriented as far as survival group, but also at the same time, trying to enable people to be able to survive on their own as well if the group scenario isn't immediately available in whatever situation we end up in. So, saying that, I think maybe an off-site storage facility for food and the like is a good idea. There are storage facilities for food and water and different stuff like that needed for our survival group that we could get for as little as $60 a month. I realize that times being the way they are right now, it's not that easy to afford all of that on your own. So I think that our group, at some point in the future, once we get to the point where we have that much food where we can't store it in our homes anymore, we will need to consider the possibility of finding an off-site location that we can rely on as holding all of our stuff, and then of course keeping that super quiet and not letting anybody know that it exists except for the people within our group, and maybe even drawing names to see who has the responsibility of holding a key or keys and access to it. But that's definitely a topic I want to talk about, because we all know that when and if things do go south, we're going to need to have a spot like that where we can load a trailer full of food and get the hell out of Dodge ASAP. I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily want to be stuck in a situation where I'm, forced to immediately run off and, having to forage for food right away. It'd be nice to have a little bit of camp comfort in our survival group, because that'll enable us to have a little bit more morale, I think. The hopelessness will be minimized that a lot of people are inevitably going to feel when things do happen, and it's very important that we keep our level of positivity, that we stay upbeat and optimistic, and having a lot of food available to us or enough to sustain our group is very, very important for morale. Let's see, we're going to add to our stores. This is just a quick footnote. One thing that you'll want to make sure that you have is hygiene products, toothpaste and soap. God knows we don't need our teeth rotting out of our faces, and we don't need to be so pungent that we don't want to be around each other. Disinfectants, bleach, washing powder, general medical supplies. And as far as the disinfectants and bleach, I don't know about what you guys think about that, but we can definitely decide if that's, goes along with what we believe. And washing powders as well as medicines for dysentery, stomach upsets, allergies, general painkillers, bandages and dressings. That stuff's super important. We're going to need to have a pretty big first aid overall pack and kit that includes the medicines as far as penicillins and things of that nature. And of course spare batteries. Okay, so that's the basics as far as storing food. Get your home supply, your home storage started. Start taking this seriously. We don't want to be scrambling last minute to come up with food supplies and medical supplies. So and we don't need to be running off into the wilderness trying to find food right off the bat. So put together your stuff at home. If you end up stuck at your home and you need to barricade yourself in your house for a little while with the lights off and the shades pulled, you need to have food to sustain yourself in that period of time until you're able to get in contact with one of the survival group members, and then we can meet up and move to our centralized bug out locations. So
tell you about the other side, about a place that ain't all pretty ass rainbows and motherfucking butterflies. I'm telling you, when you realize it sticks out like a torch in the night before you realize.